Coordinating meeting. And so we have a little bit of an agenda here, so I guess we can go ahead and get kicked off. Speaking of the video feed, I know we were going to look into the possibility of some additional software possibilities. Do we have anything to share on that front? I think we were going to try testing.
We tested it. It doesn't. You can do live recordings, but you can't do live broadcast. You can't do live streaming without like an up. Higher. We'd have to upsell. We'd have to upgrade to the higher version.
Got you.
Higher paid version. So.
And what was that? What's that?
Zoom.
So don't we have that through the UA system? And we still need a higher version.
Yeah.
Okay. I know Scott Montgomery is working on implementing that now, so I'll see if they come across anything else if they want to expand upon it, but I'll mention that they're interested in using it. Sometimes it's one of those things that it's not much more expensive to tack on, but it's just like who's using it.
Right.
It would be really great to test it.
Yeah.
Because the bandwidth is involved.
Right.
So it would be really neat to see if their particular technology approach is any more efficient. Okay, well that's good to know. So I guess then for the time being, we'll just sort of table that initiative then until we hear something significant. Otherwise, so for the meetup this month, I confirmed with Ashley Ewing that we're good to go. It's been a while since we talked with him, and so I wanted to make sure that he was still on board, and he is. He also communicated that he's in the process of moving into a new home, and all of that is hitting next week. And so, as the old saying goes, Lord willing, and if the creek don't rise, I think he'll still be good to go. So I told him to keep in contact with us if anything comes up. And I do think that Cooper Leach is going to be joining him, at the very least, if other people in the team aren't there. So this brings us into fall planning. We have our community session from July that we can bring back online. And Donald, you pulled me aside during the meeting saying that we might have some tentative dates for social media.
Yes.
What did that look like?
I was on, that week should be good.
It was September.
Our normal week. I'm just still on the same day.
Yeah. Let me get that date right quick.
September 21st.
So yeah, that would be really great to get them locked in. Okay, so we're saying that's September 21st. Okay. Great. Do we need to send anything directly out to them, or are we all good to go, do you think?
We're good to go.
Okay.
So let's send it directly to me, and
Okay.
I'll send it to Andy as well.
Okay.
Will it be enough content to take the whole hour? Just wondering if we could just schedule something in addition to social media going on that day.
The last time it was a pretty.
I should
Yeah.
do two bars.
Yeah, because people tend to have questions, and I know the last presentation was pretty. It was a pretty good deal of red meat there.
Yeah.
There was documentation and handouts and stuff, so I anticipate something like that may happen again. That's a good thought, though. Okay, so then if we're doing that for September, then October, we could do the community session. And Tori, did anybody go with you to WP Campus? Kamisha? Okay. Would y'all like to talk a little bit about that, about the conference, but just about the community in general?
Okay, great.
Okay. So we have WP Campus. I'll probably give a little bit of a highlight on Spark. Do we have any other communities that we would like to highlight that we collectively participate in, or we know of people who are involved with? This could potentially extend to conferences, any sort of networking opportunities that we think the greater community might find interesting.
There's a word camp Birmingham coming up in October. I believe it's October.
It's not October.
Yeah.
So
It's a 2-day event this year too.
You know, last year they restricted to half a day and we didn't get a good turnout.
Yeah, they did that.
So maybe a general highlight of word counts, and what they are, what value they bring, might be cool.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if our actual meetup lands after, but we can still talk about them though, because I know we've had folks in arts and sciences attend them before. And
Yeah.
they're cool, even if it is an abbreviated schedule.
Yeah, there was a call for proposals. I'm not sure if they're still open for Birmingham Word Camp.
I think it's up until August, end of August maybe. Yeah. I think I just can't remember.
So, yeah, this year. It's October 21st.
Yeah, the 21st is Tuesday.
So the different locations, so that downtown Birmingham is in Pelham, at the Pelham Civics Complex. So I'll find out more information about this. We have a PSA member that is on the planning committee for that. So I'll check and get you guys support.
Okay, cool. So I will plan to reach out then in September, just as a reminder that we have this coming up, and that'll give folks who are interested in, chatting a little bit of time to put together their talking notes. I'm envisioning, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 minutes per block. So the fact that we have 3 elements works out elegantly. Can we think of a 4th? Are there any accessibility related communities or big conferences that?
Now, we did have training last couple of days. If you want to present that on what we learned at SSC Park, well, we'll access now.
Yeah, we could do something like that. Talk about a lot of web people were there.
Are there any networking elements to that? Because I'd like to be able to focus on opportunities for networking and everything within this particular context.
Well, there are resources that are available for all campus.
Uh-huh.
So there may be things that people aren't aware of that they can utilize for free. The campus, like we have JAWS available.
Right.
And SSD Bard.
Right.
So we do have that available and sets up the accounts.
Yeah, that's still really tool heavy though, and we have considerable communication outlets for getting out the word about tools, but we can potentially have that on the back burner as a notion, depending on what other ideas may percolate to the surface. I'm also going to send out a bit of a questionnaire, or perhaps just mention it in the next WebTide meeting, put it out to people, that we have a little bit of time during the community session, and if there's something that you participate in that you think you get a lot of worthwhile collaboration opportunities out of, and that you think other people would enjoy. I'm trying to think of other regional items like Spark. I'm not as aware of what goes on in Birmingham, for instance, but I do know that we've had people participate in different things locally. So I think it might be good to pose a general notion to the greater WebTide community. And some stuff may appear that we're not even aware of. So what do we think about November then? We have that open.
We had suggested caps at the last session that we had.
Do we want to go ahead and reach out to them?
Yes.
Okay. Just so that we rotate the load, Donald, would you mind reaching out to them on our behalf?
Yeah.
Okay. Not to sneak up on you on that, but I try to rotate around so that we're all participating and doing things. And so probably it would be good to go ahead and send out feelers this month so that they have plenty of warning and time to decide what, if anything, they feel good with producing.
What day?
It will be on the normal session date. I'm sorry, my Wi-Fi's not being.
I was having a problem with the session for the social media stuff.
November 16th.
Toward the rescue. Thank you, sir.
Talk about somebody else too, potentially, CAPS. Can't do it. OIT, what was that?
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
They're just set to have a banner bundle of this whole banner upgrade that's due in December.
So, yeah, gotcha. That makes sense. That makes sense. Okay.
We do a fellow for in our department.
All right, perfect.
Figure out something that would work, see if, yeah.
I'll go ahead and make a note,
Show project meetings or about this.
since he keeps sort of coming up as a notion for 18.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So we'll see what they say. It is not unheard of that people politely decline because they just feel like there's not enough to really, present on. So that's another item with going ahead and putting the feelers out to them now. It gives us time to plan accordingly if they don't really have a roster of things to talk about.
Should be that, maybe.
I remember the last presentation they did was cool.
Yeah, it was,
About the VR, before it was popular and known that they were working on a government grant for VR, and that was back in 2015. Now we had it equipped with work at Samsung Android operating system. So that was very fun to see. And, so I was part of it, so I got to sit there.
Kamisha, while you have the board for a jiffy, do you want to go ahead and have us talk a little bit about the High Web meetup? I have some thoughts on this, and I'm curious.
Well, I emailed out to several members of the coordinating group in addition to our committee for Higher Ed Web, because Higher Ed Web is suggesting that we do one session that will last about an hour, and we do 2-3 hours of networking.
It's effectively a keynote
Yes.
with a meet and greet.
So, because they'll have vendors that will pay for refreshments. So it's more or less more of a sale on the sales end, I think. And I wonder how many people can we get? I mean, UAB is within like 50 miles of that for somebody to come up for an hour presentation and then have to travel back. So we may not get a lot of out-of-state colleges, institutions that are willing to come for just 1 hour.
I'll admit, limiting it to a single keynote, given the travel distance that we're dealing with our colleagues, I'm worried that we're going to have a value problem,
Yes.
and it's going to be difficult to get people involved. If we were running in the same conference bracket that we were last time, then it becomes a little bit easier to make it worth the travel time. Because for them, it's going to, even though we're only talking a few hours, it's going to be a day trip, even from UAB.
Right.
So we would have to have a super, super duper keynote.
Yeah, that is the key. What I presented to at our meeting, what I presented to the WebTide community was we had planned to fill the 4 hours with 6 sessions with 2 speakers speaking simultaneously in different rooms, but that's not going to work for their Higher Ed Web format. So we need to limit it to 1 speaker, and I'm wondering from the community, because we'll mostly have university employees involved, and it'll probably just be like another WebTide meeting that we're having on a different day.
So,
And it's almost like it should be something that's held after hours and not during the work hours, kind of like a normal meetup, you know, type thing. And then you kind of wonder how many vendors are really going to be involved in that. Because I mean,
Well, there are vendors that Howard Web normally sends around to different
just
regions.
doesn't seem like it's
So,
much investment for them, you know.
so you said 2-3 hour workout sessions in one.
So 2-3 hours of networking
Networking,
and
like
1
three.
hour meetup.
Yeah.
So that would be the 4-hour time window that they're suggesting for the regional meetups.
Can you give the networking sessions themes? Like, can you say during this network session we're going to talk about this, or during that networking session we're going to talk about this?
Well, that's more of a presentation type thing, and that's not what they're looking for. So they're looking maybe 2 or 3 hours to interact with the vendors and maybe with other colleagues, you know, this open space, but nothing really structured other than the one presentation that they're gonna have.
What about
From
something?
being a part of the North Higher area for the past 4 years, they're not going to be that interested in going into the actual vendor networking sessions. Now, networking and being able to speak about what they want to speak about, or if you're going to say, okay, this is like a fireside chat, and we're going to network and talk about this topic or that topic, we're going to do that. But you're going to only find people who have the ability to make decisions and purchase things when you go to the vendor sessions.
Yes. Well, it's not really vendor sessions, it would just be the vendor set up, and then people can just stop there at their leisure with that 2-3 hour window.
I imagine they would envision the way something similar to what we had for the conference, right? Which is sort of a central area where they were set up and
And then the one.
like a little micro expo,
Yeah,
Right.
an expo of 5 people.
I wonder if you could incorporate some type of like technology showcase within their expo, so people kind of, I don't know, it probably doesn't fit into their thing, but people could say, hey, I'd like to sign up to do a virtual poster or whatever, what I'm working on, different projects going on, or, you know, just talk a little bit about, and that way it gives you a way to network with people and learn about what they work with and what works for them, what doesn't, you know, something like that. I mean, I don't know if that they would even go for that.
I don't think so. The way they presented, when they responded back was with their format. It was 2-3 hours of networking and then having the 1 hour presentation.
Maybe reach out to them and figure out what they suggest to give the networking more value, right? Like, I mean, it's 3 hours of networking is a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So just say, you know, I mean, we need more meat.
Well, there's only been one, and that
I mean,
was
see what they suggest.
yeah, there's only been one regional meetup, and that was in Missouri, and that person did their presentation on ninja security, and they're also presenting to Harriet Web National in Hartford with the same topic. But again, I think it's maybe 20 people, but they're mostly university folks.
Yeah.
So they still have their webpage up.
And that was under the new format?
Yeah.
What was the city? Do you remember?
It's Missouri. Of the city, I don't know. I can't remember this right now.
I seem to recall it was the larger city. The other element that we have is that we're really spread out and people are going to have to travel.
Yes.
And so this would be workable if, you know, we were even in Birmingham, but more ideally like in Memphis or Atlanta.
Yeah, somewhere a week that just, yeah, a half a day trip is a half a day trip.
Right. And where we have a bigger base to pull from too of potential people. WebTide pulls a lot of air out of the room because our content already fills a lot of this. And the fact that, again, travel time. Do we feel interested enough about the general idea of having an event where we present and talk about items that maybe we do something separate from iWeb that we try to put on something on our own and potentially, see if there's enough value there to get folks from Stillman or maybe even UAB interested in doing a little thing. That would be, the overhead to that would be, we wouldn't be talking about October.
No, it would be spring.
That changes the conversation, but I think it's not an uninteresting.
Don't we do something like that system-wide already? With
Scholarships
UAB?
usually yeah. It's more focused in teaching, instructional. There's technology within it, but it's using technology within the teaching. Yeah.
Springfield, Missouri. It was in Springfield.
That sounds right. We'll tell you what. My vote is to go ahead and reach out to them, and I guess that we have real concerns that we're not going to be able to assemble a quorum.
Yes.
With just a keynote in networking, we may have to pass. That's my feeling. And at the very least, then we can talk a little bit during the next couple of coordinating sessions and brainstorm a little bit about what alternatives we may want to do. I still am passionate about the doing something like this. I think is a great idea to offer something different than just the traditional WebTide program. And I get also that High Ed Web, I think they're attempting to sort of re-envision their programming a bit. So, okay.
That's all I have on that subject.
Yeah.
But I do have,
I
I
need
have
to
some
submit
concerns,
answers.
but I will reach out to them again to find out what we can do within that 2 or 3 hour window, see if it does add value. And I'll send it out to the committee and I'll copy y'all as well.
Okay. I'll admit, I think that a number of us probably shared these reservations, which is probably why the feedback wasn't, you didn't get buried in it. So I think this is a good conversation to have, and we'll see where things go. Okay, I wanted to let everyone know that I have updated material on the WebTide site to integrate more information on Tuscaloosa Spark. Speaking of organizations retooling their event programming, they're doing some really interesting things in regards to moving from just a monthly meetup to having sessions that are a little bit more prescriptive, like having a round table where you get together with people who run small businesses in the local area and who do interesting technology and web work. And so there's, I think a decent amount of networking value there for folks. And so I'm going to try to stay on top of keeping the website up to date on that. Kamisha, what do you think about interacting with communities like this and using the WebTide Twitter, for instance, to like retweet and sort of help get the message out to people who may?
Who's moderating the Tuscaloosa Spark Twitter page?
I don't know. I follow it, so I know that they post.
Okay. I add them to our followers.
Okay.
Maybe we'll get them to follow us, and they can track what we're doing. We can track what they're doing as well.
I absolutely know that they were interested. I had a conversation with a couple of folks who do the programming, and I know that they were excited about any cross-pollination opportunities there. And I have been busy deploying web hosts this month, and so I did not have time, unfortunately, to overhaul the agenda and minutes work on the website. So I wanted to just give a quick update on that, and I am really going to try to put together some stuff over the next month to get some of this information that happens within these conversations sort of out and onto the web presence. All right, that covers most of the items that are sort of inherited from our prior agenda and ongoing business. Are there any new items that we would like to talk about? Any new elements that?
Maybe a social meetup for December. We can have a lunch. I'll get together and network. Sherman was nice turnout when we had we had Rachel down and we all sit there and there's maybe 10 people to show up for that. But it was nice to have lunch together, get a chance to catch up and talk about schools that we're working on.
Do we have any passionate feelings on lunches versus after hours versus? I think both are cool.
About lunch.
That's better.
Cool. All right. Where would we like to try to land that?
Calendar lines or?
Yes. We don't have to pick a firm date yet, of course, but
Our last working day. We updated the payroll calendar, so we have we're getting an extra day in December.
Extra birthday?
Mhm.
Extra off.
Extra off day, so it's gonna be around the 23rd, I think it's the 21st.
Extra 2 days.
But we have a weekend in there, yeah, so there's a Saturday that's coming up.
It looks like our last working day is Wednesday the 20th, so I know some people even just take off that short week. So maybe the week before would be best. A week of exams, which is the week of December 11th.
Yeah, graduation's late this year. So it's, yeah, graduation's late, so don't be the week of graduation.
okay, so is that we're talking about the week of the 18th?
I would-
Week of the 11th.
Well,
The week
we
of
could be
11th, sorry.
11th, because our last working day is the 20th.
Gotcha.
Thursday the 14th, since people kind of think of WebTide days as Thursdays.
Same thing.
I like Stern, because they have a big open area with lots of tables and chairs, and you can easily hear the other person next to you speak during lunchtime.
I agree. It's also a nice travel distance.
Yeah.
When will we like to announce? Add it to the agenda items of items we're currently highlighting. Just to go ahead and let people know far in advance, or we could wait till a little bit closer.
Let the madness of fall kind of get through and then
We've
then
got our,
also,
yeah, maybe in October.
yeah. Fun stuff to share.
Holiday mode anyway.
Yeah.
Just getting close to Thanksgiving.
Yeah. One thing I was thinking about, and we might have something like this in place, but do we really have a roster of everybody that's in WebTide?
The closest thing is the listserv.
One thing that I was thinking about, just, I know we've talked about like learning opportunities and things like that before. I think it'd be a good idea to make a Qualtrics poll to send out to everybody on the listserv, and just to get a feel for what kind of programming everybody wants to see, and ask other questions like, do you consider yourself more of a content manager or a developer? Just those kinds of questions, so that we can really understand who all we have here.
Right.
Because I know my role is totally different than Kim's, and everybody has a different level of what they do. So I think it'd be good to just kind of get a better understanding of who all we've got here. And I'd be happy to put that together.
I think that's excellent. We also, I will say this, we also have, we struggle with since the list is the primary authoritative thing that we have, Deadwood. Since addresses don't automatically get purged from people, the
Right.
institution. So
No, I can
I was
reach out.
I was kind of wondering if it might be good to go ahead and do. Last year we did a cycle where we asked people, do you still want to be on the list?
Yeah.
And if it might be good to sort of marry the two things together.
Okay, that can be part of the culture story, so that way it's not have to do anything separately. So we'll know who to take off the list.
I'm kind of wondering if that would help or hurt the Qualtrics survey. Basically, if we couple them together,
feel
then
like-
people might be more inclined.
Or if they just don't fill it out, then we don't.
Right.
Well, I sent
Right,
email.
yeah, that works.
But I sent emails last year, so, it was more personable than just doing the survey and check the box.
Yeah.
So.
Or we can
they
go
didn't
through the
respond
survey
quickly,
and
yeah.
then maybe do it from there, send individualized.
We'll do
Maybe
that.
just see what kind of response we get first.
I like that idea though, of sort of tying the two ideas together so that we can use the information for.
Yeah.
The WebTide site still has a back-end functionality where there was a directory that Rachel built where you could see what everybody did and have that information be out there. Nobody used it. And so it just sort of fell by the wayside. But that technology's there. And I'm bringing more and more of the sort of back-end elements of things that were behind a login up front. So that's something we could perhaps research, is that once we have the list of folks and what they do, then we can have a bit of an online directory.
Right.
And I think that might be neat for everybody to be able to see who's where. And
Yeah, or even like the Campus Communicators Network, how it just has that simple list on their website. But like, who was that girl that I talked to in the interview? Oh, yeah.
that's a cool idea. I'm glad you brought it up.
I have an old list of web people that when we first implemented him, I was trying to figure out who was content and who was
Right.
developer. And so I have an old list, we're talking like what, a little over a year ago. But so many people come and go that I don't know how to create it. So if we need to pull that, some more folks,
Okay.
I can pull that too.
Yes.
I did that too for like training.
I thought you had your separate member on this computer.
Yeah.
Hmm?
You have your separate member review on this computer?
No. The CAS authentication doesn't inherently pull in, do it, I don't believe.
Well, it depends on what program. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right now, it's just on MyBama and certain VPNs and Crimson Email.
Yeah. So here's the member directory technology that we already have, and I think it should be pretty straightforward to pull that out from behind the login firewall.
Yeah, like Taylor Anderson's in there.
This is old.
Yeah.
It's really old.
Is he left the university?
Yeah, no, he's here, but like he's a systems
Yeah.
and security,
So something to be aware of that we ran into the last time that we went through a cleaning of the roles. People get a lot of email, and we had a lot of instances of people getting removed just because they ignored it.
Yeah.
So that's something that be aware that we may struggle with that again.
So I'll go ahead and start to put together a questionnaire of things that we think are relevant, and then we can talk about it next time.
Some of that information is old. People have changed positions. Yeah, because like there was Greg Rangle's position and Jessica Anderson and Heather Baker. They're all at different places.
Yeah, this
Mine's
is
at different place. Yeah,
Well, that can happen in a year.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's not even so much of where people are, but what their roles are. Understanding how many straight up developers we have, how many people are just really interested in content management and things like that, so that we can design the programming around the audience.
Like they have their position department at college. You probably want to ask, like,
Yeah.
when it comes to web, would you consider yourself a
Yes.
We ask a lot of these questions when we send out the Qualtrics survey for the tools session that we do every year.
Yeah, very small number of responses.
This year we got one response, and they didn't even complete it. So that's the challenge. We have very high levels right now of passive participation, very low levels of active participation, and so that's something that I think, as you made a case for earlier, and I think we're all on the same page. Developing more opportunities, I think, is going to help with that.
Exactly. And that's the goal of the survey.
Indeed.
last count how many? Last count how many
Members.
Oh, on the listserv, I believe it's
It was 70, so go on.
yeah, it's.
people that we don't, even like relating it to like the AMP training and stuff, like areas like institutional research.
Now, a lot of people were,
Never I mean, I kind of know who's over there, because I know, but we don't hardly much.
Let's see, list moderation.
now we do have a few people that responded, they didn't want, they couldn't attend the meetings, but they still wanted to know what was going on with WebTide. So they did want to stay on the list for that reason.
68.
So the last survey I did, I got like 47% response rate.
Which is good.
That's it.
Anything above 20 is good percent in our experience, particularly if there's no, like, you know, enticement element to it.
At least that we start.
So yeah, it looks like the number is 68. And our poor little WordPress list that has 2. This was mainly geared towards security. There was a idea at one point to be able to channel security notices direct, and we sent out a questionnaire basically saying, you know, do you want to? Is this something that people like to participate in? If so, you know, let us know. We'll be happy to put you into this list. But we never really got any sort of buy-in for it. So yeah, no, that's cool. It'll be cool to see what you put together. Any other thoughts?
Just as an update, when it comes to Omni and the rollout of that, we are now in the 6 to 8 week development process. So they are using the templates that we provide to create the Omni templates.
What is the sunset time frame, or is there one, for the standalone development of the WordPress templates? Because I imagine that there is a, as Andy said, there'll be a bit of a time frame after which it's not going to make sense to continue development of those, right?
That will be around November. So,
That makes sense from the way things are looking in terms of progress.
So is the testing server up and ready now, the testing server, which I mentioned at the last WebTide meeting?
their development servers, all of those are they're ready to be used. They're starting to create, like, there's 1 or 2 that they're using for the CMS template or for the templates.
Okay.
They're actively using those. Once they're done creating templates, then they'll start publishing out to the 6 servers or 6 sites that hold the initial 6.
Are y'all looking for beta testers?
Not at this point. Not at this point. We're gonna go something like that between October and
Thanks for that. That's cool.
Any other questions? Yeah, just shoot them my way. And also visit CMS.UNAD. So that's what I up to.
I included a link to that in the email too, to make sure that people know that's the place to go.
Plan to that site I'm going to keep throughout the duration. Whenever things are launched, I want to convert it over to everything UA. That way it'll be consistent, everybody will know where it is at all times. They will get information from there. We'll create a form and help this process to get information to request.
Do you think y'all can add a list of the modules that were purchased so people can kind of get a feel for what information will be brought over as far as like if you purchase a forms module? Because Andy mentioned there were certain ones that you had already purchased, maybe add that to the site.
The whole suite, I think, right?
Yeah, everything.
So CCS is using it, they didn't purchase the forms module,
Um,
and they're using Google Forms.
They use something else.
They're using Google Forms for theirs.
is there-
But they had a reason why they didn't purchase it, because it wasn't at the level they needed to be at.
Mhm.
So that might be concern with some customers to do something like that.
We forms when we purchase wanted to have a group also make sure that we can use our forms class that we have. That's built into the template and being actually. Not a lot of people use it because most people just use simple forms.
But we had an issue with that, so we took it off because we're going to lost it.
Contact forms.
Yeah.
That
So they
happens.
have to add that.
Yeah, we just spoke about that as a unit, and especially within the footer. So we made it a practice not to put forms, that contact form, the module in the footer, so we can really stop using that. And then now we're working on the security piece for staff. One of the things we're trying to avoid doing is just using the outright caption. One is not very attractive, and two, it's really just another step for the users and trying to help them, trying to set them back 5 or 6 steps. Especially with the ones that right now when you have to figure out each part of this picture is a car, and you have to click 6, 7 times to get it clean. Then if you miss one, you do it again. So trying to figure out a more elegant way to do that versus using that caption.
All right. I have a meeting coming up that I'm going to have to walk across campus for, and so I'm going to have to punch out. But will that be a good bookend for the rest of us? All right.
I will continue to look for somebody to host lunch for our security meeting.
Sounds good.
I will reach out to my department to see what's left in our budget.
Food would be fantastic, and I know that particularly for this one, Ashley, I think would be really delighted to have food around so that we can have more people. Well, all righty. Well, thank y'all, and to folks joining us through the video feed, thank y'all for joining us as well. And see you soon.